When a woman begins to lower her emotional guard around you, something significant has already shifted beneath the surface. This is not a small detail, and it's not accidental. Emotionally, women are far more selective than men realize. They may laugh, talk, socialize, even flirt with many people, but emotional openness is reserved for very few. So when she starts sharing parts of herself that are unpolished, uncertain, or unresolved, that's not casual conversation. That's vulnerability. And vulnerability is a form of surrender. Understand this clearly. A woman does not emotionally undress in front of a man she does not feel safe with. Safety here doesn't mean niceness. It means emotional stability, presence, and strength. It means you don't rush to fix her, judge her, or use her openness as leverage. When she speaks about her fears, her past, her disappointments, or even her confusion, she is quietly asking a question without words. Can I be myself here and still be respected? Psychologically, this moment is critical. Most men fail right here. They either overreact by trying to rescue her, impress her, or force intimacy, or they underreact by dismissing the depth of what's being offered. Both responses break the spell. What she is testing is not your ability to talk, but your ability to hold space. Can you listen without needing control? Can you remain grounded while she reveals chaos? Can you stay calm when she shows you parts of herself she hides from the world? From a philosophical perspective, intimacy always begins before touch. It begins in recognition. When she feels seen without being exposed, understood without being analyzed, she experiences relief. And relief is addictive. It's in that emotional safety that desire deepens, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it by not needing it. There's also something else happening here that most men overlook. When a woman opens up emotionally, she is subconsciously rehearsing intimacy with you. She's imagining what it would feel like to fully give herself, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. She's gauging whether you can carry the weight of her inner world. That's why these conversations often happen late at night or in quiet moments, or when the world feels distant. Those are liminal spaces where defenses drop. And here's the paradox: the less you try to capitalize on this moment, the more powerful it becomes. Emotional attraction grows in restraint. When you don't rush to label, claim, or consume what she's offering, you differentiate yourself from every other man who mistook vulnerability for availability. You become rare. You become trustworthy. You become the man she associates with calm, not pressure. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you remain centered. You respond with clarity, not curiosity that feels invasive. You acknowledge her truth without interrogating it. You allow silence when silence feels right. Silence, when grounded, is often more intimate than words. If you pay attention, you'll notice something subtle after this stage. She will start returning to you emotionally. She'll bring more of herself, deeper thoughts, stronger emotions. This is momentum. And momentum in attraction is not created by force. It's created by consistency and self-control. So if a woman lowers her emotional guard around you, don't see it as a green light to rush forward. See it as an invitation to slow down and lead. Because when you can stay steady while she becomes open, you show her that giving herself to you wouldn't be a risk. It would be a release. And that is the kind of safety that turns curiosity into desire and desire into devotion. When a woman begins to seek your validation without directly asking for it, you're no longer operating on the surface level of attraction. This is where things turn psychological. This is where interest becomes investment. Understand this clearly. Validation seeking is not weakness when it comes from a woman who otherwise holds herself with confidence. It's alignment. It's orientation. It's her emotional compass quietly recalibrating around you. She may not say, "Do you like me?" Instead, she watches. She pays attention to your pauses, your tone, your reactions. She notices what makes you smile, what makes you quiet, what earns your respect. She might casually mention an achievement, a decision she made, or something she's proud of, not to brag, but to see how you receive it. Your response now carries weight because you carry weight. Psychologically, this happens when a woman has begun to internalize your opinion as meaningful. You are no longer just someone she interacts with. You are someone whose perception of her influences how she perceives herself. That's not accidental. That's attachment forming. Human beings don't seek validation from everyone. They seek it from those they are emotionally invested in, those whose approval feels consequential. Here's where many men misunderstand the moment. They think validation seeking means they should now give more praise, more reassurance, more emotional output. They flood her with affirmation, trying to lock the connection in place, and in doing so, they cheapen what was rare. Validation only has value when it's selective, when it's measured, when it feels earned, not handed out. The deeper truth is this: she's not asking for approval, she's testing orientation. She's asking, do I matter to you? But more importantly, do you value yourself enough not to need me? Because women are drawn to men whose approval is scarce, not because they are cruel, but because scarcity implies self-worth. When you don't rush to validate everything she does, you signal that your standards exist independently of her desire to please you. Philosophically, this is about polarity. Attraction thrives when there is a stable center and a responsive orbit. When you remain centered, grounded in your values, calm in your presence, she naturally adjusts her behavior toward you. She becomes more intentional, more expressive, more revealing. That adjustment is not manipulation, it's alignment. It's her choosing to move closer without being pulled. Notice how subtle this is. She might ask your opinion on small things, her choices, her plans, her thinking. She may joke, but still watch your reaction closely. She might even challenge you, just to see if you hold your frame. All of this is information gathering. She's learning how you see the world and whether she wants to live inside that lens. The danger for men is ego inflation. Feeling chosen can make you careless. You start performing. You start posturing. You start chasing the feeling of being wanted instead of remaining the man who inspired it. The moment you begin needing her validation back, the polarity collapses. Attraction doesn't disappear instantly. It erodes quietly. The men who maintain attraction at this stage understand restraint. They validate character, not behavior, depth, not appearance, effort, not neediness. They offer acknowledgement without overindulgence, and in doing so, they reinforce the very dynamic that made her crave their approval in the first place. When a woman seeks your validation without asking, it means she's already stepped into your frame. Your job is not to pull her closer. It's to remain solid enough that she chooses to step in fully, because the strongest attraction isn't built by convincing someone of your value, but by quietly living it and allowing them to recognize it on their own. When a woman becomes protective of the connection she has with you, even without openly claiming you, you're no longer dealing with casual attraction. You're dealing with emotional investment. This is the stage where her feelings are real enough to feel threatened, but not yet safe enough to be spoken aloud. And that tension is important to understand because it explains behavior that confuses most men. She may not say she's jealous. She may even deny it. But you'll feel it in the questions she asks, the tone she uses, or the subtle shifts in her energy. She might casually inquire about other women in your life, not in an aggressive way, but in a way that seems almost accidental. Or she may pull back slightly when she senses competition, becoming quieter, more distant, or more guarded. This isn't manipulation. This is self-protection. Psychologically, jealousy only emerges when there is something to lose. A woman does not guard territory she hasn't emotionally entered. When she starts protecting the bond, she's already invested time, emotion, and imagination into you. She has begun to see the connect ion as meaningful, even if she hasn't consciously admitted it to herself yet. And because that admission would require vulnerability, her ego steps in to maintain control. Here's where men often misread the situation. They either confront her directly, demanding clarity, or they reassure her excessively, trying to smooth over the tension. Both responses collapse the polarity. Confrontation forces her into a defensive position. Over-reassurance signals insecurity. Neither creates safety. Neither deepens attraction. What she is really observing in this phase is your emotional leadership. Can you remain calm without withdrawing? Can you stay warm without chasing? Can you acknowledge the moment without dramatizing it? Emotional leadership is not about dominance. It's about steadiness. It's about being the emotional constant when her inner world is in flux. From a philosophical standpoint, this stage is about possession without ownership. She feels connected to you, but she doesn't yet feel entitled to you. That tension produces desire. When you try to resolve it prematurely, you remove the very friction that makes attraction alive. Desire thrives in presence, not pressure. Notice also how this protection often shows up indirectly. She may want more time with you. She may create reasons to stay connected. She may subtly discourage you from drifting without ever telling you to stay. These are not strategies she planned, they are instinctive responses to emotional attachment. Our nervous system is responding before her logic catches up. The key for you is not to exploit this attachment, but to respect it. Exploitation creates short-term compliance and long-term resentment. Respect builds trust. When you don't use her emotional signals against her, she relaxes. And when she relaxes, she opens further. That's the paradox most men never understand. At this point, your consistency matters more than your words. How you show up, how you respond, how you handle ambiguity. If you remain grounded, she begins to associate you with emotional certainty. And emotional certainty is rare. It's magnetic. It's what allows her to stop guarding the connection and start leaning into it. This is also why playing games backfires here. Creating artificial jealousy, disappearing to provoke a reaction, or testing her attachment may boost ego, but it damages trust. A woman who is already protecting the bond is sensitive to emotional disruption. She is asking silently, is this connection safe to deepen, or do I need to protect myself more? If your presence answers that question with calm strength, she moves closer. If it answers with chaos or insecurity, she pulls away, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much to risk herself. So when a woman begins protecting the connection, don't rush to define it or dominate it. Hold it, lead it, respect it, because when you become the man who doesn't need to compete for her loyalty, she begins choosing you without needing to be asked. When a woman begins to reveal parts of herself she usually keeps hidden, you've crossed a psychological threshold that most men never reach. This isn't about oversharing or emotional dumping. It's about intentional vulnerability. She chooses what to reveal, how to reveal it, and most importantly, who gets to hear it. And when you're that person, it signals a deep shift in how she perceives you. Attraction can exist without trust. Desire can exist without safety. But vulnerability cannot. Vulnerability only appears when a woman feels emotionally contained in your presence, when she senses that you won't judge her, rush to fix her, or use her past against her. At that point, you're no longer just someone she's attracted to. You become someone she feels safe being real with. Psychologically, this is significant because vulnerability activates bonding mechanisms. When she shares fears, disappointments, family struggles, or moments of emotional weakness, she is lowering her defenses. That act alone creates attachment because the nervous system remembers who it was unprotected around and survived. Safety becomes associated with you. This is where many men unknowingly sabotage themselves. They mistake vulnerability as a cue to give advice, offer solutions, or position themselves as the hero. But emotional depth doesn't ask for solutions, it asks for presence. When you rush to fix, you unintentionally communicate that her emotions are a problem to be solved rather than an experience to be understood. That breaks the spell. What she's really testing in these moments is not your intelligence, but your emotional restraint. Can you listen without interrupting? Can you hold space without minimizing? Can you respond without making it about yourself? These moments quietly determine whether she opens further or shuts down again. From a philosophical perspective, vulnerability is an act of surrender, not surrender to you, but surrender to the moment. She is allowing herself to be seen without armor. And when that happens, attraction transforms into intimacy. Intimacy isn't physical first, it's psychological. The body follows the mind. You'll notice that when a woman feels emotionally safe, her energy softens, her guard drops, conversations deepen, time feels different. This isn't accidental, it's a natural response to feeling understood rather than evaluated. And understanding in this sense doesn't mean agreement, it means acceptance. Another important detail most men overlook is discretion. If she trusts you with private thoughts, she is watching what you do with that trust. Do you treat it casually? Do you reference it later during conflict? Or do you hold it with quiet respect? Trust is built not by what you say in the moment, but by what you never misuse afterward. This stage also reveals something deeper. She's beginning to imagine emotional continuity with you. She's not just reacting to attraction, she's integrating you into her inner narrative. You become part of how she processes life. That's powerful. And it comes with responsibility. If you remain grounded here, she associates vulnerability with strength, not weakness. She learns that opening up doesn't cost her control, it deepens connection. And once a woman learns that with you, her investment multiplies, The paradox is this: the less you try to extract intimacy, the more freely it's given. When you don't demand emotional access, it's offered. When you don't pressure vulnerability, it arrives naturally. So when she opens up, don't rush, don't perform, don't fix. Just be present, steady, and real. Because the man who can hold a woman's inner world without trying to own it becomes the man she willingly gives herself to, emotionally first, and everything else follows. There comes a moment when attraction stops being emotional curiosity and starts becoming intentional investment. This is subtle, but unmistakable. You'll see it when a woman begins to reorganize her time, her energy, and her attention in a way that consistently includes you. Not occasionally, not conveniently, but deliberately. And that shift says far more than words ever could. At the psychological level, attention is currency. Everyone has limited emotional bandwidth, and where a person places it reveals what they value. When a woman wants to give herself to you, she doesn't just enjoy your presence, she prioritizes it. She makes space for you without being asked. She adjusts plans. She reaches out not because she's bored, but because she wants alignment. This isn't dependency, it's choice. Many men misread this sign because they focus on intensity instead of consistency. Intensity can be impulsive. Consistency is intentional. A woman who is merely attracted may disappear when life gets busy. A woman who is invested finds a way to stay connected even when it's inconvenient. That's not obsession, that's attachment forming through conscious effort. Philosophically, this reflects something deeper about human behavior. We shape our lives around what feels meaningful. When she starts integrating you into her routine, she's not just responding to desire, she's responding to significance. You become part of her internal structure, and people don't restructure their lives for something they see as temporary. What's important here is how you respond. This is where masculine discipline matters. If you immediately overconsume her availability, you weaken the polarity. If you take her effort for granted, you erode respect. The correct response is grounded appreciation paired with independence. You acknowledge the investment without becoming reliant on it. This balance reinforces something crucial in her psychology, that her effort enhances the connection but doesn't control it. She feels valued without feeling responsible for your emotional state. That safety allows her to invest even more freely. Another overlooked aspect of this stage is reliability. She begins to show up when she says she will. Her communication becomes clearer. Mixed signals fade. Confusion decreases. That's because emotional clarity follows emotional commitment. When a woman is unsure, her behavior is inconsistent. When she's aligned, her actions stabilize. This is also where many men sabotage things by testing too much. They pull away dramatically, delay responses artificially, or try to manufacture scarcity. But real attraction doesn't need manipulation. It responds best to quiet confidence. You don't need to disappear to be valued. You need to remain centered. When she invests consistently, she is unconsciously asking a question: is this safe to deepen? Not safe in the physical sense, but in the emotional and existential sense. Can this connection grow without chaos? Can it deepen without me losing myself? Your steadiness answers that question better than any reassurance ever could. Over time, this mutual rhythm creates momentum. She feels that giving doesn't cost her dignity. You feel that receiving doesn't cost you strength. That's the foundation of real intimacy, two grounded individuals choosing each other without pressure. And here's the deeper truth most people miss. When a woman willingly invests, she's already surrendered the need to keep emotional distance. She's no longer guarding outcomes. She's participating fully. At that point, what she gives isn't forced, it's offered. So when you notice her showing up consistently, making time, aligning her energy with yours, don't rush to label it or control it. Meet it with presence, not possession. Because the man who respects a woman's investment without exploiting, it becomes the man she invests in completely. And that choice, freely given, is the deepest form of desire there is. At the deepest level of attraction, something fundamental changes in how a woman relates to you. It's no longer about impressing, testing, or negotiating value. It becomes about trust. And trust, psychologically speaking, is the moment a person relaxes their defenses because they believe the other person will not misuse their vulnerability. When a woman reaches this stage, what she offers you is not just affection or desire, it's access to her inner world. You'll notice this when she begins to speak without filtering herself. Her thoughts become less polished, less performative. She shares fears she doesn't usually admit, doubts she doesn't show the outside world, memories that shaped her, even contradictions she hasn't resolved yet. This isn't weakness. This is intimacy in its most honest form. Philosophically, to reveal the self is to risk rejection, and people only take that risk when they believe the ground beneath them is stable. Many men misunderstand this moment. They think attraction peaks at physical closeness. In reality, physical closeness is often the byproduct of psychological safety. When a woman feels emotionally safe with you, her nervous system is calm in your presence. She doesn't feel the need to control the interaction. She stops guarding outcomes. That's when real surrender happens. Not submission, but openness. This is where masculine leadership becomes essential. Not dominance, not control. Leadership. Your role here is containment. You listen without trying to fix. You hold space without exploiting it. You remain composed when she reveals something messy or unresolved. Every time you respond with steadiness instead of judgment, her trust deepens, and trust compounds faster than attraction ever could. From a psychological perspective, humans bond most strongly with those who can witness their authentic selves without withdrawing. When she shows you something personal and you remain grounded, you signal something powerful. You are safe here. That safety allows her to invest emotionally without fear of being diminished. What's critical is what you don't do. You don't rush to label the connection. You don't weaponize her vulnerability later. You don't use her openness as leverage. The moment a man as that, attraction collapses, not gradually, but instantly. Trust, once broken, doesn't erode. It disappears. This stage also reveals your inner discipline. Can you stay centered when someone opens up to you, or do you become inflated by it? The man who feels chosen too quickly often loses the very presence that made him trustworthy in the first place. Confidence must remain quiet. Strength must remain regulated. Philosophically, this is where desire transforms into devotion. Not devotion to you as a person, but devotion to the connection itself. She feels that what exists between you has depth, meaning, continuity, and meaning is what humans protect most fiercely. When a woman gives you access to her inner narrative, her motivations, wounds, values, she's not asking you to save her. She's inviting you to walk beside her. Equality begins here. Mutual respect begins here. And from this place, physical intimacy becomes an expression, not a transaction. If you understand this moment, you stop chasing signs and start recognizing them. You no longer ask, does she like me? Because the question itself becomes irrelevant. Her openness answers it before you ever speak. And here is the final truth. When a woman feels safe enough to be fully seen by you, she has already decided that you are worth trusting with her reality. At that point, attraction is no longer fragile, it's rooted. So don't rush, don't perform, don't force momentum. Be the man who can hold truth without flinching. Because the strongest form of desire is not sparked by excitement, but sustained by safety, presence, and depth.